Hey guys, Jacqueline here with Zenith Home Loans. Thank you so much for joining me for another of our interview series. Today we have Miss Janice Johnson of Truly Gourmet. So I'm super excited to hear everything about cooking and chefing and just figuring out how in the heck we cook meals. So why don't you just kind of start with maybe a little introduction about maybe some of your backgrounds and kind of what you're doing now, and then we can jump into some questions.
Sure. I've been a personal chef for about 5 years now. And what that means is I have clients that I cook for on a weekly basis. Typically it's one client per day, and I make multiple customized meals that they have selected or approved for menu choices. And I make their food, first I buy all the ingredients, I cook everything, package it, label it, and either deliver it or put it in their fridge. And they've got delicious meals ready for the week. So it really takes the stress out of so many people's lives when it comes to mealtime and cooking and stuff. So
yeah. Awesome. So have you always done the professional chef route, or were you working in restaurants prior?
Definitely did restaurants prior to that. I think I've been in the restaurant business for, like 20 plus years. But I definitely came from more upper scale, fine dining, cooking, or restaurants. And I was doing more of the kind of the front of the house type. I wasn't actually doing cooking at the restaurants. So I went to culinary school and kind of evolved and decided, this is the career path that I wanted to take at this point. So I love it.
Awesome. And so how long have you said you've been doing the personal chefing for about 5 years now?
Yep.
And do you think you enjoy that more than if you were to go back to the restaurant world and be a chef from that experience?
I understand the restaurant industry, and although it's, advantageous, it's an option. It's not something I'm interested in. I love being able to do this, on more of a Monday through Friday during the daytime hours. And that way I'm able to spend quality time with my family, on nights and weekends and holidays, those type of things.
Yeah. Restaurant hours are difficult. I remember when I used to wait tables, those are challenging hours, and it's very, very hectic, especially in a fine dining experience.
It is. And, after doing it for so many years, I just decided that it was time to go another direction. So
yeah. Awesome. Okay. So let's jump into some questions for you. So I had pooled kind of like some of my clients and my friends was like, what would you want to know from a professional chef? And so that's where a lot of these questions come from. So the first one is are the meal kits worth it? Have you ever cooked from any of them? Do you have any experience with those?
You mean like
the Green Chef,
or Lutheran, those type of I've not cooked or tried them myself, but I know friends and family that have, and there are good points to those as well as some not so great points. People say that they like the ease and convenience factor, but the point that they still have to cook all of the food and do the prep, and that takes a lot of time. It can average about an hour to make a full meal, and everybody has that much time and effort that they want to put into it. I know that the packaging tends to be cumbersome, and sometimes the quality of the ingredients is not always up to snuff.
Yeah, that was I can't remember which one I tried, but that was the packaging, obviously, because it just felt wasteful. There's so much. And then sometimes we would get stuff, and by the time it gets to us, just through the nature of the delivery and postal system. It's really beat up or something went bad or whatever the case may be. So that's good. What is a good go-to quick meal during the week if you're short on time, but don't want to sacrifice flavor?
It's a good question. I think a lot of people are really into like this time of year, I would say whatever you have that you can cook on the grill.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that can be meat, vegetables. You don't have to heat up your stove or your oven, and it's quicker cleanup as well, you know. So I think seasonally outdoor is great. But maybe during the winter, something more like whatever you've got in your pantry. I like to kind of use those creative juices and be like, oh, it's kind of like being on Chopped. What do we have? What can I make out of this?
Yeah.
So all you've got is, spaghetti and a jarred sauce, and you want to, throw together something quick and easy. That spaghetti and meatballs is always something that's simple that anybody should to do. But I think it's just fun to use what you've got and kind of think outside the box. I love to make, even like if you got spaghetti noodles, you can make lo mein with spaghetti noodles and vegetables and just add, make your own sauce, kind of simple. It's a great go-to.
Yeah. I always colossally screw those things up. And I'm like, ooh, let's be on Chopped for a minute. I'm going to grab 6 things. And I'm like, none of this goes together. What about crock pots? Do you like using a crock pot for cooking or a slow cooker?
I use them definitely in the winter more. I can't think of the last time that I've used mine in the past several months, but I do find them very, they're fabulous for those low and slow cooked things. If you've got a pork butt and you want to put it in there and just, you're going to make carnitas, low and slow is the way to go.
Right.
Really no other. You can do it in the oven, but I do like just kind of those meats that you can throw it in and kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
You can go to work, come home, and your meal's done.
Yeah. That's definitely my favorite part. I have a turkey chili that I do in the crock pot, and I just throw everything in there and let it go. And then in the evening, then I'll stir it up. And I'm trying my hand at, and I'm failing miserably. I should have called you first, but I'm trying to make homemade spaghetti sauce in the crock pot right now with fresh tomatoes, which I have a great recipe. It's my mom's recipe, but we've never done it with fresh tomatoes. And that in and of itself has had a learning curve. And so I'm like, this doesn't taste as good as I was really hoping it would. So we'll circle back to that. I'll get you offline for that. What about air fryers? Do you use those, or do you think that they're worth it?
I've never cooked with one. I'll be honest. I'm not big into fried foods, and most of my clients aren't. But I know that I've got friends that use them for other things. Like I've recently learned you can use them to heat up foods instead of cooking. They're great for reheating, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. But air fryers, no, I don't have a lot of experience with those.
That's okay. Gas or electric stove, which is better? What do you like most?
Well, a good chef should be able to cook on anything.
Right.
If I have my choice, I have a gas stove and I love it. I didn't always have gas, so I definitely use and can use, whatever heating device that you've got. The old school coils, it's an adjustment to go back to that now.
I bet.
I have to.
Yeah.
But I've got clients that have the induction heating, and that's really cool too. So fun to be able to heat up water in like a minute.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, and with gas, it seems that it's a lot easier to control temperature on gas versus like the stovetop, glass top, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it's much more manageable and it's instant. You turn on that flame and you don't have to wait for it to get warm at all. It's ready to go.
Right. Yeah. It's been a while since I've had not a gas stove, and I actually forgot about that part of it. So that's a good point. Where do you shop for your groceries? Do you have a favorite store?
I have a few because, as most people know, you can't get everything in one store. It's
Right.
kind of frustrating.
Right.
It doesn't even matter, well, for me, I'm not just buying groceries for one meal. I'm buying multiple groceries for multiple meals. So with a list as long as mine, I almost always have to go to more than one store, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whole Foods is great because of their quality and they're organic. And I think that it's really important to get the best quality food that you can. You only got one body, might as
Yeah.
well treat it right.
Right. Right.
Besides Whole Foods, I do like Sprouts. I think they've got excellent produce. If I have to go to a grocery store for, a special type of ingredient, then that's what I do also. It's kind of a backup.
And then, so do you buy your meat at like Whole Foods or a Sprouts, or do you go to like a Tony's Meats or a more specialty meat store?
I definitely love Whole Foods, and I love Tony's as well. So I kind of go back and forth between those two for my first choice with meats. Absolutely.
Okay. Do you ever shop at this time of year? We've got farmers markets on every corner, obviously on the weekends. Do you do any of your shopping for the week for any of the clients that you cook for, or even for yourself? Do you do shopping for produce and stuff at farmers markets?
I love farmers markets. I don't have one that's open during the week when I need to get my groceries. So when I go to those, it's usually just for my family, for me.
Yeah.
I did some peaches the other day though, and was able to share some of those with friends. So that was kind of fun.
That's fun. Anytime I go to farmers market, the first thing I look for is fresh tamales, because I've made those from scratch before and I will never do it again. It's too hard. Man, they are good.
Yeah, and you have to have a knack for it too. So I'm with you. Tamales is not something that I regularly make.
That's a commitment.
But
it's like a 3-day commitment.
Exactly. Make them in bulk.
Yeah.
So you can, share and maybe freeze them. They freeze really well.
Never make them again.
I missed that. Sorry.
I said, make them in bulk and then never make them again. Just be like, just freeze them because you're not going to want to do this again. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. If someone else is shopping for you or doing like your produce shopping, is there a good selection technique that you recommend for certain things? Because a lot of people use like Instacart and some of those shopping services. And so it's hard to know what kind of produce you're getting. Like, do you have any recommendations around that? Because you're shopping for other people, but you're the one who's picking it out. So is there like, maybe if there's like one piece of produce that maybe is like the hardest thing to pick out and something to look for?
I would say like avocados, you never want to get them when they're soft and squishy. It's late. They're overripe. And there is a little trick to those. I don't know that the Instacart people do this or if they know about it, but you're not sure about your avocado, the little button that's on the where the stem is, you can literally like pull off the little button, and if it's green inside, it's good to go. I know that like with melons, they should be heavy so that they've got a lot of juice. I don't know how to tell Instacart people though how to pick out proper produce.
I don't either. I just figured out how to pick out a good cantaloupe. And it was only because I was growing one and I didn't know when to pull it. And they're like, oh, and so I'm like Googling it in YouTube. And they're like, it should smell really sweet. And so I that's when I pulled it. And oh my goodness, this was the most delicious cantaloupe I've ever had. And I haven't found anything like it. How do you cook for a large group of people without having a meltdown or panicking?
Prior planning prevents pathetic performance. So
say it again.
It's a good motto. Prior planning prevents pathetic performance.
Performance.
Plan ahead, and you got to be meticulous. I would say the best thing you can do is really pick a menu that, number one, is what the people want, right? Seasonal always is best. But if you can pick something that is going to be just as good, the day before, 2 days before your main entree, make it ahead of time, or pick your dessert that you can make ahead of time. And that way you're not trying to scramble and get everything done at the last minute.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible to do that for large groups.
Yeah.
You can't have fresh pasta and be baking a cheesecake and making, scratch bread from scratch. You can't just do it all. You have to kind of think about, how's this going to work and what's your timeline, and decide what I'm going to do in the morning, afternoon, what needs to be done last, and kind of strategize that way.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. That's a good point. Every time I try to have people over, I was like, oh, I'm gonna make all these things. And I'm like, people are eating and enjoying, and I'm still cooking stuff. I'm like, this is a dumb way of doing this.
It's hard.
Do high altitude adjustments to cooking really matter?
It depends on what you're making.
Okay.
It does matter where we're at, but there's small adjustments that you can make that do make a difference.
Okay.
If you turn up your heat by, 15, 20 degrees in the oven, it will make a difference. I would check your end product a little sooner when you're doing that. Lower your time, if it's 30 minutes, check it at 25 before you, pull it out, just to make sure.
Yeah.
You can also increase flour by a teaspoon or tablespoon, depending on what you're making, and also reducing sugar, just about the same, just a little bit.
Interesting.
But it makes a difference when rising. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, cool. That's actually super helpful. I never follow those rules. And then I'm always so surprised when my baking skills don't. And I'm like, maybe I should have followed the directions. Let's see. What's the most common mistakes when cooking chicken or meats?
I would say most people tend to overcook because they're so worried about it being cooked all the way. They typically temp their meat.
Okay.
And that's so important. If people are not using a thermometer to get the proper temperature, then you're doing yourself a dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
It's not going to be, it's either going to be under or over. If you've got a temperature, you know exactly where it's supposed to be, and you can pull it off exactly at the right time. Okay. So that's vital.
So cooking with a thermometer, especially when you're cooking meats, that sounds like that's the biggest recommendation there.
Huge.
Okay. Awesome. Let's see. What meal do you see people mess up the most?
Gosh, probably fish. I would say people are nervous and maybe don't have a lot of experience. So a lot of times they're overcooking their fish.
Okay.
And they don't realize that it has a lot of carryover time. So when you pull it out of the oven, it's still cooking. But there's real key signs to when the fish is cooked. When you see, kind of that white, a little bit of white coming through, that is key. You also pressing on it to feel. You literally put your finger in the middle of your salmon fillet or whatever and give it a little push. And if it feels soft, like raw, it's not done, obviously.
Okay.
But I think the white is called albuminum. I can't remember how it's pronounced. Albium, maybe. But that is, that's like, when juices run clear on chicken. it's cooked.
Okay.
Same type of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What are some must-have cooking essentials? Like, what do you recommend all kitchens definitely have to have?
Besides the proper, pots and pans,
Mhm.
utensils, measuring cups, those type of things.
Yeah,
Are you thinking like above and beyond, or just the
sure.
basics?
Either, whichever one that comes to mind.
Um, I love my fish spatula. Like I use that for cookies, not just fish.
Uh-huh.
It's so thin, and you can I use it on so many things. I think a whisk is absolutely vital as well. You need to be able to whisk not just eggs,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're making something frothy or making a vinaigrette, having a really good whisk
Mm-hmm.
is really important. Yeah.
Is there a brand that you really like for those types of kitchen utensils, like maybe like serving utensils, measuring cups, those kinds of things? Do you have a favorite brand?
Um, Not as much of a brand as far as what type. I would say whatever's the least expensive, the cheapest stuff is it's gonna wear out. It's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be plastic. It's gonna be too cheap. You don't have to get super high end if it's something that you don't use on an everyday basis. Um, but I would say just getting quality products, something that's stainless steel, something that can go in the dishwasher and
Mm-hmm.
isn't going to move. There's nothing more frustrating than going to somebody's house. You're looking for a measuring, a spoon.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, is this a teaspoon or a
Uh-huh. That's how it is at my
half of a
house.
tablespoon?
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
plastic in the tea is rubbed off.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I
what
had one of my friends came over to cook with me and like right after I had my son, and I remember her going through my stuff and she goes, I don't know what any of this is. And I'm like, yeah, I don't either. And so I made my mom take me for my birthday and I go, I need all new kitchen, like cooking utensils. So we got all new stuff. And then she was at my house the other day. One of the things has broken that I got. And then another one, I thought I got these really nice measuring cups and they're metal. I thought they were higher end than they are. And they like bend down. And I'm like, well, this doesn't work either. So I am still struggling to find the exact best kind. I might just have to bite the bullet and go get the super fancy ones for those kinds of things. So I know they're super durable and it's like engraved in there. So I always know what the measuring unit is.
right.
What is the shelf life of spices? When should I throw my spices away?
So people don't realize that they slowly deteriorate in quality fairly quickly.
Okay.
On average, I would say if you're not using it within 6 months to a year, get rid of it and buy something new.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
I did not know that. There's definitely some 5 or 6-year-old things in my pantry I should get rid of.
Yeah, I would say if it's that old, you're not getting the full essence, and in fact, it might be bad. It might
Yeah.
actually taint your food in a not pleasant way.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's one of those things that you should definitely go through annually. Or if you've got a recipe and you're like, oh, it calls for dry dill, grab your dry dill and look at it, smell it, if you want to taste it. Or if you're like, I haven't used this in 2 years for sure, just go buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
The
good.
good news is if it's something you don't use often and you don't want to spend, $7 on a container of something that you may not use for another 2 years, I would recommend going to the bulk section in a store like Sprouts, where you can buy as little as you need. If you want only a quarter of a teaspoon of something, you can get it. And you're not paying more than what you need to pay for.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I didn't think of that. What's your favorite meal to cook? Just for whether it be for yourself or others, like what's your favorite meal to make?
I would say that's a tough question too, because I love to cook so many types of food. I
Mm-hmm.
love variety. I would say it always varies with the season also
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm in the mood for. But this time of year, anything from the garden. I love anything fresh out of the garden. Seasonal, a good caprese salad is so fabulous. Um, Zucchini is coming up like crazy right now. So anything
Yeah.
with zucchini, I love
Mm-hmm.
it. So I'm sorry, it's not just one thing.
That's okay.
I love so many things. Yeah,
Yeah. What do you have? Because you do a lot of your own, you grow a lot of your own food too, don't you?
I do have a lovely garden. Awesome.
What kind of stuff do you have out there right now?
I have 4 or 5 different types of tomato plants.
Mm-hmm.
I've got zucchini, cucumber, kale. Um, that might be it. Yeah, that's what I did this year. That filled up the garden.
Yeah, I did. I do the same thing with tomatoes, and I accidentally planted cherry tomatoes. And
Uh-huh.
I never plant cherry tomatoes, and it was mislabeled. And I walked by it the other day, and I see all these. I'm like, oh no, because I've planted cherry tomatoes before, and it's too many. I didn't think that was a thing because I always put 5 or 6 plants in there too, so that I have all of the tomatoes. But the cherry tomatoes, it always overruns everything. Um, that answers all of my questions. Is there anything else you want people to know about you, about your services that you offer, getting in contact with you, anything like that that we haven't already covered?
Oh, sure. Um, I should probably maybe just mention that I do parties and private events, and I
Okay.
really, really enjoy doing those. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of fun.
Yeah.
Um, so people hire me, and it's more smaller scale. I don't do a lot of like big weddings or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly like birthday parties, or I've got one on the calendar coming up for a retirement party. And sometimes it's a formal sit down dinner. Sometimes it's more of a like multiple appetizers and desserts and kind of finger food so that people can kind of come and go and just have several options to taste and nosh on. So parties are always customized and catered to, what my clients' needs are, what they want. And we kind of brainstorm and come up with ideas that really fit the occasion.
Okay.
So it's a lot of fun, and it really, really helps the host so that they don't have to worry about all of the food prep, the cleanup, the details. They can really enjoy their guests and their party. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's important too.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll have all of your contact information in the presentation so that everybody knows how to get in contact with you. But I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Jacqueline. It's my pleasure. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Bye, guys.